Okay, so get this. Google just got slapped with this crazy fine in Russia, right?
Yeah,
And it's so big, it's like mind-boggling.
absolutely.
Like, it makes the entire world's economy look tiny. We're talking a number I bet most people have never even heard of, 2 undecillion rubles.
That's right. It's a number that's hard to even imagine. 20.5 decillion US dollars.
Whoa!
If you had to pay for, like, every grain of sand on Earth
Oh, wow.
twice, that's kind of the scale we're talking about.
I mean, I know Google's a huge company, but come on. There's no way anyone could actually pay that. What's the deal? What do they actually do to get hit with a fine like that?
So it seems like it's about Google refusing to put back 17 pro-Kremlin YouTube accounts.
Hmm.
These are channels, like Zvezda, Channel 1.
Yeah.
Like you might have heard of those if you follow Russian media.
Right.
They're pretty much directly linked to the Russian government.
Okay, so there's obviously more to it than just that.
Oh, definitely. This has been building for a while now.
Yeah.
There's tension between Russia and those big Western tech companies.
Yeah.
This fine, though it's more like a symbolic thing,
Right.
it's just the latest in an ongoing struggle.
Okay, so let's go back a bit. Like, how did we even get here? When did all this tension start between Google and the Russian government?
Well, the legal battles go back to like 2020 when YouTube, which Google owns, suspended the accounts of Tsargrad TV and RIAFAN.
Okay.
These outlets,
Yeah.
they have ties to individuals that have been under U.S. sanctions since 2014.
Mm-hmm.
YouTube said that was the reason for the suspension, violation of those sanctions.
So we've got international relations, sanctions, big tech, all colliding already.
Exactly. It's definitely not a simple situation. It's not just one country telling a company what to do.
Right.
You've got all these layers of international law,
Yeah.
And then 2022 happened after the conflict in Ukraine started.
Yeah, because that's when YouTube suspended even more of those Russian state-controlled media channels, right? It was bigger than just Tsargrad TV and RIAFN.
Exactly. Sputnik, NTV, Russia 24,
Wow.
even RT, which is, directly funded by the Russian government.
Oh, right, yeah.
A bunch of others got blocked too, so it became this big crackdown.
Yeah.
Things really escalated.
I'm guessing the Russian government did not just sit back and watch that happen.
No, not at all. They've got this federal anti-monopoly service called the FAS.
Okay.
And they stepped in.
Yeah.
They accused Google of, abusing its power in the market, hit them with fines,
Yeah.
totaling 4 billion rubles, which is still a lot,
Yeah.
but nothing like that decillion dollar figure.
Right, of course. Did Google even pay those fines back then?
Well, only partially.
Hmm.
And that didn't go over well. It seems like their plan to deal with all these escalating penalties got kind of extreme. In 2022, Google's Russian subsidiary filed for bankruptcy.
Bankruptcy? That seems, I don't know, extreme. Why?
Well, their debts, they were listed as over 19 billion rubles.
Yeah.
And they only had 3.5 billion in assets.
Oh, wow.
A Russian court actually declared them bankrupt in November 2023.
Officially bankrupt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, was that a real financial crisis?
Yeah.
Or a strategic move, to protect their assets globally? Nobody's sure.
It's like they're saying, we can't pay, we're broke.
It is a legal tactic, but it's risky.
Yeah.
Declaring bankruptcy doesn't just make all your debt disappear, especially when you're talking about fines from a government.
Especially from the Russian government.
Right.
So what about Google's parent company, Alphabet? What did they have to say about this whole thing?
Well, they did acknowledge it in their Q2 2024 report.
Okay.
They talked about the legal stuff in Russia,
Right.
the accounts being closed, the fines going up, even the fact that some of the accounts belong to people under those sanctions.
But did they seem concerned, with all that going on?
They kind of tried to downplay it. Right. They said it wouldn't have a material adverse effect on their business. Which, when you think about how huge Google is globally,
Yeah.
it might be true.
Yeah.
From a purely financial standpoint.
Right. But I feel like there's got to be more to it than just the money.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
This bankruptcy, it's about more than just the bottom line. It's about their ability to keep working in a major market.
Yeah.
Their reputation globally, and what it all means for other tech companies that are facing similar stuff.
So wait, Google's bankrupt in Russia, but they're still operating there? How does that even work?
It's kind of strange, right?
Yeah.
So, their search engine and stuff, you could still use it in Russia.
Okay.
But, actually doing business there.
Yeah.
It's gotten a lot harder for them. They had to, let go of a bunch of their Russian workers.
Mm-hmm.
And, the bankruptcy makes it hard for them to invest or really grow there.
So they're kind of stuck.
Yeah, they're not totally gone, but it's not exactly a good situation either.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a mess. It really shows you how these global politics can mess things up online.
Totally.
What started as just a fight about a few YouTube channels
Right.
has become this huge legal and financial battle
Exactly.
with real consequences for Google.
And their users in Russia.
Okay, but this bankruptcy thing, have other companies tried that in Russia? Is that like a normal way to deal with fines or pressure from the government?
It does happen.
Mm.
Like, especially in tech, you see a lot of foreign companies facing this kind of stuff.
Right.
And some of them, yeah, they do things like downsizing,
Yeah.
restructuring,
Okay.
even bankruptcy. They're trying to protect their global assets
Ah.
from what they see as unfair, or political, like, penalties.
So it's like a high-stakes game then. Like
Yeah.
they're trying to outsmart the government,
Totally.
using the law and finances as their weapons?
That's a good way to put it. And it makes you
Yeah.
wonder, like, who really has the power here? Governments or these huge companies?
It's a good question.
Right. Can one country, like, just decide the rules for a global platform like YouTube? What happens when national laws clash with, free speech, open information?
It's tricky, for sure. It feels like we're entering uncharted territory. Like the old rules don't even apply anymore.
Yeah, I think you're right. This whole Google situation,
Yeah.
it's like a tiny version of a much bigger struggle that's happening globally. We're seeing governments everywhere.
Not just Russia.
Exactly. They're trying to take more control over the internet, at least within their own borders.
Right, and they all have their reasons too, right? National security, cultural values,
Yeah.
protecting local businesses. I mean, the list goes on.
Exactly. It's tough to figure out sometimes where real concern ends and censorship begins.
Yeah.
But it's definitely happening. More and more countries are making laws and regulations,
To do what?
trying to control what's online,
Mm.
restricting certain platforms, even forcing companies to store user data in their country.
So this Google thing in Russia, could it like set an example for other countries?
Maybe. Like, if Russia wins this fight, uses those fines and pressure to get what they want from Google,
Right.
it could give other countries ideas.
Yeah.
We can do that too.
Yeah.
And then you could end up with this internet where it's all broken up.
Fragmented.
Yeah, different rules and regulations depending on where you are.
That doesn't sound good.
No. It could really slow down innovation, limit information, and make it way harder for businesses to work across borders.
Yeah.
Imagine, like, needing a new VPN for every country you go to, just to use the same websites.
Sounds like a nightmare. So is there anything we can do to stop that?
It's complicated, and there's no easy answer.
Of course.
I think the first step is just admitting there's a problem,
Yeah.
starting a conversation. Like, we need countries to work together on making some ground rules for these tech companies, rules that respect each country,
Right.
but also protect the idea of an open and accessible internet.
So it's bigger than Google and Russia now.
Definitely. This is about the whole internet,
Yeah.
and it affects everybody. Think about it. If one country can basically bully a huge platform like Google,
Right.
what's to stop others from doing the same thing? Where does it end?
That's a scary thought. So what's the takeaway for our listeners? Why should they care about this whole crazy story with Google and this impossible fine?
It's not just about Google. It's about the future of the internet. The information you can get and, like, who's controlling it all.
Yeah.
The decisions these companies make, how governments react, it'll all have a huge impact on you, even if you never go to Russia.
It's a reminder that the internet, even with all its potential, is still tied to, real-world politics and agendas.
Exactly. In this Google case, it shows how important it is to be informed, to think critically, and to understand what's really going on behind the scenes.
We can't just blindly accept everything we see online.
Right. We need to be informed, engaged, and ready to speak up for the kind of online world we want.
So being aware of the problem isn't enough.
We need to be actively involved in finding solutions.
Which starts with
Asking questions, challenging what we think we know and looking for different viewpoints. Don't just take things at face value. Dig deeper, explore, form your own opinions.
Okay, so back to Google for a sec. They're bankrupt, but their services are still in Russia. What are they trying to do? Are they just hoping this all goes away?
It's hard to know for sure,
Yeah.
but it seems like they're in it for the long haul. They're keeping a low profile, leaving their options open, but also trying to avoid any more, legal or financial trouble.
It's a tough spot to be in. They don't want to abandon Russia completely, but they also don't want to look like they're giving in to the government.
Exactly. And that's something that a lot of tech companies are probably going to face as more and more governments try to figure out how to manage the internet.
It's crazy to think that this whole thing started with just a few YouTube accounts.
Right.
It just shows how even small actions can have huge consequences in today's world.
And it reminds us that the choices we make online, individually and as a society, they matter. They have real consequences that we need to be aware of and deal with.
So we've talked about a lot, from those huge fines to bankruptcy, from sanctions to what the future of the internet might look like. It's a lot to take in.
It is. But it all comes back to that fight over a few YouTube channels, which is wild.
It just shows how interconnected everything is.
For sure.
And how even seemingly small things can have massive ripple effects.
Absolutely. And it underscores the importance of digital literacy, critical thinking, and understanding the dynamics at play in the online world.
Yeah.
We can't afford to be passive consumers anymore.
Right. So where do we go from here? What's the big takeaway from this deep dive into Google's situation in Russia?
Well, I think the main lesson here is that the internet, as amazing as it is, isn't some separate world free from real-world politics and power struggles.
Right.
We need to be informed, critical, and engaged citizens, not just, passively scrolling and clicking.
We need to know what's at stake, who the players are, and what the rules of the game are.
Exactly.
And be ready to fight for the kind of digital future we want.
Exactly. And that starts with being curious, questioning what we assume to be true, and looking for different perspectives. Don't just accept what you see at first glance.
Yeah.
Dig a little deeper, explore, and form your own opinions.
This is just the beginning, though, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's so much more to learn, understand, and talk about when it comes to the future of the internet.
For sure. And we want you, our listeners, to keep exploring, keep asking those tough questions, and keep talking about these issues.
Because the future of the internet isn't set in stone.
Right.
It's something we're all creating every day.
Exactly. With every click, every post, every choice we make online.
I know it can be a little overwhelming to think about.
Yeah.
But that's exactly why we do these deep dives, We want to, break down these complex issues, look at them from different angles, and help people make sense of it all.
I think that's so important.
Yeah.
And this Google thing, as crazy as it seems, it's not just some isolated thing.
Right.
This stuff is happening all over the world.
Yeah.
Governments are, struggling with how to manage the internet,
Right.
How to balance what they want with, global connectivity. And then there's these huge tech companies.
They're in the middle of it all.
Exactly.
So it's not just a Russian story.
No, this has implications for everyone, everywhere.
Exactly. And it's not over yet. Right.
Right. We don't know how this whole standoff is going to end or what will happen in the long run, but we can use it, as an example to really look at the bigger picture.
It's a reminder to pay attention, to be informed, and to be engaged if we want to protect this open internet, which is so important to our lives.
Absolutely. We got to think critically.
Yeah.
About the information we see online, challenge assumptions, and demand transparency from both governments and these companies.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive, we'll leave you with this, okay?
All right.
If this crazy fine could happen to Google in Russia,
right,
what's stopping other countries from doing the same thing? What does this mean for a free and open internet?
Yeah.
And what role are you going to play in shaping that future?
Those are some great questions.
Right.
And while we might not have all the answers,
of course not,
we really believe that by having these conversations, looking at things from different perspectives, and demanding better from our leaders and those companies that shape our online world, we could actually work together.
Collectively.
Yes, toward a digital future that works for everyone.
That's it for this deep dive.
This was a good one.
I hope you guys learned something, that you were engaged, and maybe even a little bit, unsettled, A
little bit, yeah.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those conversations going.
Exactly.
Thanks for listening.